Hey guys, this is Ralphael Locklear with Constructive Conversations, and in today's podcast, it's going to be a unique one. You see a couple new faces here. You've got Mark, and then you've got Brianna. Brianna's my daughter, and in this podcast, we're going to be giving you a interesting perspective or a different look on what it's like growing up in my daughter's situation. You know, watching me grow the business for like 20 years now, and so it's going to be interesting to see what her take has been over the course of these past 20 years, watching us go through struggles, the different triumphs, and now that she's working in the business, her unique perspective on what that's like. And yeah, so it's going to be something you're definitely going to want to take a look at if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, because I promise you, if you have kids, you're an entrepreneur, you're in business, you're going to be facing a lot of these same struggles. And maybe it's a chance for you to get something right that maybe I'm probably going to learn that I've gotten wrong going throughout the course of this journey. But nevertheless, let's dive right into it. Mark's going to guide us off on the questions in an interview style. So, Mark, what you got for us, buddy?
Well, first things first, you guys are a lot of people's dream. And I just want to put that out on the table and give you guys your flowers. Ralph, you've done an incredible job of building up this business and your family to the point to where your daughter is in the business. Everyone wishes that their kids would jump in and take over a business like that. And then Bree, switching over to you, you know, we share an office. And so I get to work with Bree pretty closely. And she's only 19 years old, right? You're 19?
Yeah.
Which is incredible. She's professional. She does an incredible job. And she's been jumping in and really getting her hands dirty, which is, I think, what anybody who owns a business would hope that their children would do when they get involved. And so I just want to give you both your flowers and say you've done an outstanding job and you're doing an outstanding job. I want to go into the past a little bit with Bree, with, you know, being raised by someone like Ralph, who is an entrepreneur, who's running this business, who's, you know, busy a lot, has a lot of work to do. I'm curious what your earliest memory of your father as an entrepreneur.
There's a bunch, I would say, but growing up, first it was just me and my sister, until RJ came along, but he didn't really experience much of what we experienced. So like growing up, there were the late nights, you know, we would wake up and my dad would be behind the computer working. And at first it wasn't really we had Southeastern, but Southeastern wasn't what Southeastern is today. So there was like a digital marketing company that he had at one point, and so we would like watch him or see him working on that company, and it would be like late at night, like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And my sister and I, we would just like go stand behind like a chair like this, and we would watch him or fall asleep on him. And that's probably one of the core memories that I have, mainly just showing you that like it's not easy, but when you're an entrepreneur, you can't give up. Like you just got to keep going, and if you give up, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for you, honestly.
So I'm curious because a lot of people, you know, their parents work regular jobs, and encourage and influence them to go in that direction, maybe go to college and try to find something stable. What's it like growing up in a home where business is a central theme?
Well, growing up, you know, when I was in high school, I couldn't decide really what I wanted to do. And, you know, my dad owns a business, you know, and then my mom is like, oh, Bree, like, you know, you should go to college or at least get something, have that, you know, certification or whatnot. And then my dad was like, you know, college is important, but you really don't need it, like, to succeed. And, I mean, obviously you don't, because not saying he did go to college, but, you know, it's not something that you have to really have to succeed in life. So it's kind of like, okay, do I go to college or do I choose a different route? And at first I did go to college. I was at FTCC taking business, and I enjoyed it, but I was like, I want to do something else. Like, I don't really think at first this is what I want to do. So like my heart has always been in like real estate, or like my mom has her license. So I was like, I want to get into that someday. And so I was taking business, and I was like, okay, this is the route. Real estate is the route I want to take. And yeah, I mean, you know, I wouldn't say college is, it's not for everyone, but then it is for some people. It all depends on the person's personality. Like if they have the drive to like want to become an entrepreneur, or like they don't think that they really need college to succeed, I would tell them, you know, take that route, become an entrepreneur. But if you feel the need to go to college to learn through textbooks or whatnot, then go to college. It all depends on what you want to do in life.
So throughout, I'm going to kind of flip-flop between you two and just get these different perspectives. So Ralph, I'm curious from an entrepreneurial standpoint, as someone who has a lot of responsibility, has been running this business since I've known you, and about a decade before that. I'm curious, what were those early years like when Bree and Maya were really young and you're trying to get this business off the ground, especially in relation to, your relationship with your daughters? And what was that like, finding that balance at a young age when the business was maybe a lot more uncertain than it is now?
Yeah, I think first off, I'll say I felt like I got quite a few things wrong, but you know, I was always blessed to have clarity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's you have to have a vision of what the future is going to look like, and even when your present situation doesn't even give any indication of what you have envisioned is even possible.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I was brought up, the situations I went through, it all prepped me for difficulty. And when I got into business, I knew that when we got the news that Diana was pregnant with Bree, and I made a conscious decision right then and there, like okay, the traditional route's not going to work for me.
And I've heard that before too. You mentioned that Bree, realizing that you guys were getting ready to bring Bree into the world, was kind of a pivotal moment for the beginning of this business.
Yep.
So in a sense, like, this business and you have a similar lifespan, or a beginning. And
that's the
Both
funny
oh
thing
four.
about it. Yeah, I mean, and it might sound weird. I imagine it's probably sounded weird to some people when they hear me at certain times, especially during the struggles, how I look at this business. I treat, and I'll point to that mascot every single time. I treat this business, it's the same thing to me as my daughter, as Maya, as RJ, as my wife. It's my responsibility. And, there was many years where I've always had that passion, that sense of responsibility, but everybody don't see that. I mean, you imagine seeing, someone telling you, your spouse or whoever, you're hearing your dad treating a business just like it's a child.
yeah, so pausing there, how does that resonate with you, Bree? When you hear, like, your dad looks at this the same way he looks at his children, how do you feel it? How does that resonate within you?
At first, it's like, this is kind of like, not say it would be materialistic, but it's, it's a business. But in a way, it's a good thing that he does, because it shows how much dedication he has towards his business. He also has towards his family. And most people don't have that. Most people dedicate more time towards their business and neglect their family, or more times towards their family and neglect the business. Kind of like have to have balance for both. So seeing that, it's like, you're appreciated, or like you still care about you, whether, more time sometimes goes towards the business than family. But that's oftentimes what it takes to get to the point that we are. Because growing up, that's what it was. It was business. Sometimes more so over family. Like, business had to come first. But in a way, if he didn't do that, if he didn't put the business first, we wouldn't be where we are today. There has to be, like, I guess, like husband and wife, there has to be a certain mutual understanding. Because if you don't get that, you're not going to succeed in life, in my opinion. But yeah.
And so, that's the thing that I know that we've gotten right, with me and Diana. I mean, it ain't been all roses and everything, it's struggles and everything, but, I always wanted that traditional family setup, and I know we're living in a different world where, that could be looked down upon, or it could be, it could be looked, as a wonderful thing. But for me, I knew what I wanted to replicate or implement in my lineage. You know what I'm saying? Being a foster child, not having the luxury of having my mom and my dad there every morning when I wake up. And, it was my first goal to say, when I do have my child, when, I want to be that guy. I want to be that dad. I want to be that husband. I want everything on my shoulders. I want to carry it. You know what I mean? And so I guess when you look at this whole conversation, you bear that in mind, everything starts to make sense. But it did take, me and Diana, kind of being on the same page. And over years, I've done a lot of course corrections. I've had to learn a lot of things the hard way. And being willing to humble myself when I get things wrong. And I know for the first quite a few years, actually probably the majority of the years, is that I tend to get obsessed with certain, especially, with work. I knew I can say this 100%. I was obsessed with it for the longest time. And the reason why was because I knew that success or failure, for a large part, depended on how well I was able to do this, because I wanted to be the breadwinner solely.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I wanted that traditional structure. I wanted my wife, and my kids was been my ultimate goal to see what I'm doing, what I've done, want to become a part of it, and want to help grow it. However, sometimes you can get lost in the sauce with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're coming up from a background, you're not really taught like business. You have to learn at least become really good at communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
reading people, reading the situations, and for the longest time I didn't have those skills, and it showed up in the worst ways in my personal relationships, of course, in business, but through pure perseverance and not wanting to fail and willing to do a course correction. Granted, it took 20 years to get to the table where we're at now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that it could have been done a lot sooner. But I was coming from a place where I had to figure it all out pretty much on my own. And yeah, Bree's right. There was many nights where that was the thing. It even got to the point to where that became too much, because at night, I need to be tucking them in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I felt like I got a lot of that wrong. However, we've had this conversation amongst ourselves as a family, said, hey, we can choose to look at a situation in many different ways. And yes, you could look back on some of those years, and some people could say, hey, you wasn't there for me at that particular time, or you was busy doing this and doing that. And you would be right. Or you can say, hey, I see, what we're creating, or what, what you're doing. But also too, along those lines, I had to say, hey, wait a minute. Certain times, there's this thing about balance, work-life balance. I've never been the one to be politically correct too much, but at this stage of my life, I am seeing where it takes, at certain stages, an intense focus.
Mm-hmm.
But also everything's a season. So maybe in the beginning season, you and your wife, or like with me and my wife, we had to have an understanding. We knew what our roles were, even though for the longest time it was kind of unspoken.
Mm-hmm.
But we got the kids, and with Diana, and that's one of the things that I've always loved about her. She's been a nurturer. One of the things I fell in love with her about, she always was concerned with how I'm doing, if I'm hungry, if I'm comfortable, and so I knew I could trust her with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it never was my expectation for the longest time when it came to do with anything with business. I got that. Here's your role, here's my role. Together we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to success was that I went to college. I got an associate's degree. It gave me a foundation for electrical, for blueprint reading, for HVAC, for all of that. It was an industrial systems degree. But I had accomplished my goal in 6 months after graduating, and I knew I had to readjust, because, I was lead electrician within 6 months, top pay, and got the job I wanted, thought that's what I wanted to do. But then, like I said, we got the news that, hey, okay, you got a child on the way. And I could just see from my surroundings, not knocking it at all, because that's normally what it is we get a job, we make top pay, we get a manufacturing job, and we live our lives, and we provide for our families that way. But I wanted more. So I'm like, I wanted to get my own business, wanted to start my own construction business, and went about doing that. And the thing that helped me the greatest was the fact that I knew it was going to take me forever to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not the smartest, I'm not the brightest. I was a DNF student,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a work ethic that nobody's going to match.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not in the physical sense, manual labor, nah. But I know myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know that what I'm passionate about and what I'm talented and gifted at, and once I take interest in that, that's my superpower. I'll stay at it and be consistent, where everybody else is going to lose interest over the course of 3 months or 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And, listening to Bree talk about some of those instances about her and Maya kind of like being behind my chair late at night and stuff like that. She mentioned about marketing. And, I started a business, but I knew nothing about marketing. Didn't know nothing about web design. Didn't know nothing about videos. Didn't know any of it. But over the course of time, what I would do, I'd see where I was failing, and I'd make small adjustments. Okay, I need to learn how to put together a web page. I couldn't afford to pay somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Do a web page. So guess what? I got to learn that. And there's where those sacrifices come in at. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why can't we got to have a good website. I got to do brand. So, it's like, what do you do in those situations? You do what you can do until you can do better. And hopefully, my thing is that hopefully I always have enough time to course correct before it gets too late if I do go overboard in one area or another. And I think I've done a decent job with that, but I mean, by no means did I get it all right.
I'm curious, in the raising of Bree, did you plant seeds along the way, encouraging her to want to come into the family business?
Like growing up, I think every child that grows up in like a family business, they're always like, oh, I don't want anything to do with the business. Like, oh, I don't see my role in it, or, you know what I mean? I don't see what potential asset I could become to the company or whatnot. So, I mean, probably like, I wouldn't say planted a seed to like want to become in the business, but just being in the environment and seeing like all these people, like the money that you could be made in this business, and growing up around business owners like, you know, Louis or all these other people, and just being in that environment, like you tend to like, you know, you see this money coming in, you're like, okay, like I want to have that, or I want to be a part of something like that. And so I think that's more so what planted the seeds, growing up in the environment, being at the office late at night, or hearing in on the meetings or whatnot, you know. So I think that's kind of what planted the seed. But yeah.
And so I think from my recollection, I don't think that I was ever the type of person to either try to steer Bree one way or the other. I don't think I was. I tried to. I'm a realist. You know what I mean?
And an extremist.
I'm a realist and an extremist on certain things. That, you know, what I'm passionate about, I'm passionate. What I know, I know. It ain't you know, coming from a sense of arrogance or nothing like that. But you know, how was that? Who was that? They said that Coach Deion Sanders. You know, some people mistake his confidence for arrogance, you know what I mean? But he put in the time. He knows what he knows. But I think the way I tried to lead and tried to show, they saw me do the work. There's nobody will ever say anything that I didn't earn it, that I didn't do the work, and that I don't deserve whatever is coming. You know what I mean? But I know that Bree's got a totally different personality than Maya. Maya's got a totally different personality than RJ. But the thing that I made a conscious effort, if anything, was I'm honest, I'm real with myself, and I knew there was a season in this business where I hated it. God, I hated it, but I was committed. There ain't no not doing this.
And growing up, you couldn't really see that he hated it due to all the determination and effort he put towards it. Like, I would have never known he hated it just by, you know, always getting up and, you know, being there, you know. So, I mean, that's something I never knew. But, yeah, like, I don't know. Like, comparing, like, my siblings and I to, like, whoever ends up being in the business, I didn't think that this was something I wanted to do. Like, a couple years ago, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to become a lawyer. Like, I want to do that. But I'm like, let's be honest, I don't have, you know, the brains to become a lawyer. My personality might be like one, but that don't mean that my brain is. And so, like, seeing my dad, I guess, like, his work ethic, it bled into, like, how I was in high school. Like, I sucked at math, but by my senior year, I had an A in math. So it's like, you know, I put dedication into everything that I did. And I always remember growing up, I think I was in like the 6th or 7th grade, there was this one kid, and he was the smartest in our class. Like, you know, he didn't have to study for anything. He had the brains, and you could tell. And so then, but I didn't. So I always had to study. I always had to put in the work. And I always remember my dad telling me, hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. And that's something that, like, I've never forgotten that. And I always live by that, because even though I may not, you know, be brain smart, my hard work will get me to the same level or even further than the person that does have the talent. So, like, seeing it kind of did bleed into how I am now, or how I was in high school with, you know, school and work and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say.
You know, I hear you guys both say this phrase sometimes along the lines of like, oh, I'm not the brightest, but I'm determined and I'll figure it out. And that will outperform somebody who might know something and not apply themselves. But I kind of look at it in a different way, because I don't look at either of you as like lacking mental faculties. I think that what it is you guys are actually intelligent and wise to know your limitations. And it's kind of like that phrase, you know, they say, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. I think you two are pretty aware that there's a lot you don't know. Whereas a lot of us will walk around and feel like, you know, we know a lot. And we lean on that, and we think that we are wise and whatnot.
Especially coming into this business, like, I was like, oh, I grew up around construction, but I'm realizing I don't know a lot about construction. There's a lot I don't know, and I'm like, okay, what does this mean? Like, what is this? You know, how do I do this? And it's like, you know, even though you grew up around it, there's still a lot that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, though. Just knowing that you have a lot to learn, and that you can learn it, and that you can perform, and that you can show up. And
then it's cool to see because, you know, we're doing government contracts and stuff like that. And then I'm out there, I'm 19, and everybody's like, wait, how old are you? Like, you look, like, they're like, you look younger. Like, oh, it's great that you're coming in at such a young age. Mm-hmm. That way, like, you can get further. You know what I mean? You can do more.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What's it like being a 19-year-old girl coming into the construction industry? Because this is your first year working in the business, right?
Well, doing this, yeah. I mean, I worked during COVID, but that was just like, you know, stuff around the office. But now it's more, I'm involved. I have certain certifications and now my real estate license or whatever. And honestly, sometimes it's, I don't even, what's the word? Like, I'm on site, right? You know, we're on Fort Liberty, and you have these subs. They're all men in their like 40s or, you know, 30s, 40s or whatever, and they're know-it-alls. And so it's like me coming up to them, a 19-year-old female, by the way, and be like, hey, you need to do this, or you need to follow this protocol. It's like, why am I going to listen to her? She's a female. She's 19. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So, like, sometimes I feel like I struggle with what's the word? I don't know how I would say it, but, like, asserting my authority. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because, maybe
stepping into your power as the safety officer.
Yeah, like, sometimes I feel, like, kind of intimidated to do so because it's like, they've been out here long. They know more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. With certain subcontractors, it's different. Because, like, doing the sign job, like, I got along so well with them that it was easier to be myself. Because, truly, myself, I am, like, that way. Like, you know me and you know how I can be sometimes. But then with people that I don't know, I feel like it's kind of hard for me to be myself and assert that authority that I have. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, we are Southeastern and you work for us, and not to be cocky or rude or anything, but like in a certain way, you have to listen to me, whether I am a 19-year-old female that's telling you, hey, you need to put your hard hat on. Hey, where's your gloves, or where's your steel toe boots, or why aren't you doing it this way? Or, you know what I mean? Because being in a field of construction, these guys don't play by the books. You see them on roofs without hard hats, and then who's left liable? We are, you know? So it's like, just making sure that they follow. It's kind of hard and intimidating sometimes. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
See, I think you have a good position there, though, because if someone else, let's say, was coming in and becoming a safety officer, they might be looking at it through the lens of, this is my job, and this is like, they may not be tying it to, oh, the company's really responsible if X, Y, and Z. They might be looking at it more so of like, oh, well, that's just my job. Yeah. Right? So I think that you have a unique perspective in this where you have an investment in the company. Mm-hmm. So even though you're doing the, safety officer position, you also care about this business and this company.
Yeah, because, one day it's going to be mine. So it's like, you know.
Some of these questions I was going to ask later, but since we're on the topic now, let's say tomorrow's a new day and your dad says, hey, I'm off to Puerto Rico. It's been nice. The business is all yours. What is the first thing you would change about this company? You're the new CEO. I want to know what's the first thing you would change about
What's the first thing I would change? Okay, first of all, this is for me personally, I guess, but I would change the dress code. That's pretty much it. Like in the office. Not for y'all, but for me. Because
oh, just for you?
No, look, okay. Because sometimes I feel like depending on people's personality, they like to dress a certain way or like, show themselves a certain way.
So you want some more freedom with the clothes?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be like, oh, come in pajamas or whatever, but look professional and like, I mean,
can I wear my Crocs?
No, no Crocs, no Crocs. That's not professional at all. Okay, Mark, no Crocs. But so, I mean, like I've even brought it to him. I was like, why don't we have pins that have Southeastern? That way, like, if we go to say the seminar that we're going to be attending, and I want to dress like, nice, professional, but I still want to have the logo on. Be able to do that too. But I mean, other than that's nothing really, but I think that he has a good setup, a good foundation, a good system. I wouldn't really change it.
That was my next question, is what would you make sure remains the same?
Everything. It's a process. It works. It's proven to work. Why would I change it? You know what I mean? Like, I probably wouldn't change it because I feel like right now, compared to other construction companies, we do things a little bit differently. We video document like everything. And at first I'm like, my God, I have to record this. Like, being on camera, like, I can record myself, but then, you know, being recorded or having, once again, assert that authority where, hey, I need to record you. I need to get this video documented. I felt so uncomfortable doing that. I felt so uncomfortable being, hey, like, I need to get a video of you. Is this, you know, let me know what's going on, video document. It was kind of hard for me to do that. But now it's kind of, as you start doing it, you see the purpose, you see why, and it's kind of easier to do so. So, yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't change anything. Yeah.
Besides the dress code.
Besides the dress code.
Yeah.
Got it.
And on that, I'll say, you know, the thing that I want to, you know, be clear on is sometimes, not sometimes, but all the time I've learned in selling, and we all sell everything. You know, everybody's a salesman, regardless if they know it, realize it or not. We all are salesmen. So in situations like that, I try to be as flexible, but there's a reasoning behind that, and it's psychology. And this industry, the one thing I love about this industry, maybe it's in all industries, I don't know, but this one is the only one I can speak to, is that you have to become great at so many different things to make it. Psychology, I have no desire whatsoever to be in psychology, but you guess what? And there's certain levels of this stuff in business. Yeah. If you want to get to a certain level, you're going to have to get a good basic understanding of psychology and how it applies to people, their perceptions. And let's face it, there's studies being done. I started out, I was wearing, you know, blue jeans and work boots. But as I knew, I'm like, you know what? Hey, I got to follow a blueprint that works. If I'm trying to go a brand, eventually one day it might become franchisable or whatever. What is the blueprint? And psychology says is that when you look at companies and when you think about it on an individual basis, you're going to go buy a camper or you're going to go buy a truck or what, and you go to an establishment. How do you feel when you walk up in that establishment? One guy's got a tank top on or wife beater, and the other guy's got some shorts on and Crocs. And
see, that's something we would not allow.
You know
that's
what I'm saying?
So unprofessional.
Noted, Bree.
So unprofessional.
Casual Fridays.
So, you know, it's like, okay, well, there is reasonings for that. And when you walk into an establishment where it ain't got to be exactly the same, but you see uniformity there. You see a lot of diversity there, but there's uniformity and diversity. That tells you that you've got a collaborative team who's got a common goal and objective without them ever saying a word, just by how they present themselves. So, I think
that's a big thing too, how you present yourself. Because that's people's first impression of you, how you look, how you're dressed. And, you know, some people, they say, oh, you shouldn't care what other people think. But in this environment, like this business industry, or like not in, I wouldn't say in construction itself, but like in real estate or anything, your presentation of yourself, how you look, how you dress, that's so important and crucial. You know what I mean?
So, but as far as with the name tags and all that, you know, I want to, you know, take the opportunity to say that I think you guys would agree, there's a certain level of freedom, flexibility, and in anything we do, there's a certain level of let's try it, let's see, let's let the results speak for themselves. So in the event like that, sometimes, especially when you've got an idea like name tags, great, okay, because, you know, my sense is, all right, cool, where they at? Let's try them. You know, well, we'll take the initiative.
They can even have our names on them.
You know, get the name
so
and put
like
the logo
Mark,
on them. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've learned too, where I've struggled, and, you know, this is a part of the course correction, is like, hey, you know, there's a certain thing called initiative. You've got good ideas like that. Let's implement them. And if it's a good idea, we keep it. If not, we agree and say, well, that was a bad idea. We didn't recognize that having name tags had a negative connotation to it, that now we're having to face this new challenge. So, you know, I'm always wanted to have an environment where you guys, the team, have a certain level of freedom, flexibility, that your voice gets heard, and but you get to actually implement things that can put us on a different direction, you know, in the business. You know what I'm saying?
Bree, was there any pivotal business challenges that your dad had to face anytime throughout, you know, you growing up? Could even be recent.
Government contracting. Like starting off, like it was hard to get through the door, hard to get a seat at the table. Like, you know what I mean? Most people, it takes them such a long time to even get their name out there or get their foot in the door. But once we you know, once we got in the door, once we got a seat at the table, we just proved to everybody what we're capable of and who Southeastern is and what we represent, and we stuck to it. You know what I mean? Held to what we were. What we did on custom homes, we did on government contracting. You know what I mean? Our process was still the same. We still video documented. We still over-informed the CORs or, you know, PMs, whatever. You know, so we kept the same process, but I think that was probably one of the biggest pivotal moments or challenges that Southeastern has faced. You know what I mean? Holding a good representing ourselves a right way. I don't know how I would word that.
And it sounds like that would leave or has left a pretty big impression on you. I'm curious, how has that shaped your outlook towards adversity in general?
Anyone can do it. It doesn't matter your skin color, where you're from, nationality. Anyone can do it. Just, you know, if you want a seat at the table, you're going to do what it takes to get that seat at the table. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think. And,
you know, just to highlight on it, just so the viewers have some deeper insight on what that was like. I mean, you know, we've been 8A certified, HubZone certified, Native American on. So we did the work of checking almost all the boxes that we could check to make ourselves as presentable, as enticing, if you will, to the government when they're looking to hire contractors. But we were essentially starting over again from scratch in that industry, even though we've got, you know, 20 years of experience, or at that time 18 years of experience, even though we had over 100 5-star reviews, and we went into a totally new industry, no contacts or no context as far as what it would take to get in the door. And sometimes if we're not careful, we can use those challenges to want to feel sorry for ourselves or make excuses on why we're not getting a seat at the table. And I am so thankful God give me the mental fortitude and awareness not to succumb to that way of thinking, because that for sure is one of the things that I see that holds so many of us back, because we get comfortable in our failures or our lack to break that glass ceiling. And I say we, I'm primarily speaking to the minority community, being Native American, and, you know, it's easy for us to lean on that as a crutch. Well, hey, I can't get in the door because, you know, I'm Lumbee or I'm whatever, fill in the blank. Not saying that that's not the case. I'm not saying it's never been the case. But what I'm saying, and from my own personal view and my struggles, is that, you know what? I would say 95% of the time, that's not the case. It's eitherwise, you know, you don't know who you need to know. They don't know you. They don't trust you. You're not proven. They've already got people that they know, like, and trust, already doing what you're trying to do, and you are a gamble. And I don't like taking gambles, is the way most people view it. So what do?
That's why you got to show them that you're worth the risk.
Exactly.
Like, going in, probably, we didn't, like you said, we didn't have connections or whatnot. We didn't know how government contracting worked. Now, 2 years in, we have the contacts. We know the contacts. But that's only because, you know, the whole team had dedication to learn what it takes to get into government contracting, because this is, like you said, a whole different world. But, you know, with Troy, you have someone that loves to network and travel, and he's our prime resource for the contacts, you know what I mean? So when he goes on these trips or whatnot, he's meeting those connections, and those connections, it's a small world. It leads back to Fort Liberty or to the core. You know what I mean? So it all connects.
Big shout out to Troy.
Yeah, big shout out to Troy. But it all connects. So, you know what I mean? But that's only 2 years in. Imagine 5 years in. You know what I mean? Like, if we're able to do that in just 2 years, who knows what we have coming 5 years from now.
And so it's kind of back to like what you were saying too, Bree. And one thing that I wanted to do, you know, when looking back when, you know, she was 2-3 years old and what it was like then, I deliberately, when we got into Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty now, I specifically went up there and said, hey, I want you by my side at every step of the way on this particular contract. You know, so when the phone call came in, what was that like?
I saw it from the beginning to the end, at least on the sign job.
And so the idea was, and I Correct. And, like I said before, I think there was a lot of things I did wrong, but I thank God and I prayed that, that I still have time to do course corrections with each one of my children that might, because I think there were some times where they might have looked at me in business and saw some of the struggles and the stressful situations, and I could almost guarantee that from their perspective, they might have been like, man, I don't want nothing to do with that. My dad's always stressed.
And I want to build on that and ask you the question, Bree, now that you're in the business with your dad, do you see his journey and sacrifices in a different light than you did when you were younger?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I guess when I was younger, you hear the stories, you know what I mean? Like, at least the chaos behind throughout the day or whatnot. You don't really hear, okay, well, we did this, we got this done. You hear mainly the chaos. So back then it was like, homeowners are like that. I don't want to deal with that. Like, I don't want to deal with their attitude or, all this other stuff. And now it's like, it's worth dealing, not saying that you shouldn't, people like that shouldn't be dealt with, but there's a way to handle each situation. And it's all about your approach. Like, you could change a person's day just by how you speak to them, or their attitude could change just by how you treat them. If you treat them with respect, now 9 times out of 10 they're going to treat you with respect. But if they're just an a-hole, they're just an a-hole. But it all comes down to that, like now I guess it's not as difficult as I thought it was growing up, or like, because growing up I was like, I don't want anything to do with the business. I don't want to have to go through that stress that I seen him go through. I'm like, if it's that stressful, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm off that. I'm okay. You know what I mean?
So when Bree finally decided that she's going to get into the business, how did you guys have that conversation, and how did that resonate with you?
I don't even think the conversation
I don't think there was
spoken.
even a conversation. Yeah. I think that from my perspective, I think it was, life happens. Time goes by super quick. I think it really started settling in, and I'm reading in between the lines of what I could see. But I think when it was, okay, I'm fixing to graduate, or I'm getting ready to graduate, and, okay, now this is for real. I need to go to college, and, well, wait a minute, am I going to get financial aid, or no, I can't qualify, so now we got to pay, wait a minute, now you start asking the real questions that life starts to throw at you.
Most definitely, because I was a senior in high school, still hadn't applied to any college. Like, and I was like, I'm just going to tech. I'm going to just do tech, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, it was still up in the air. So it was like, we didn't even have the conversation of, hey, I want to get in on the business. It was kind of something that, like, I knew it was going to happen, but like with this time it would happen. So like, I was at tech and I'm doing business, but like, I would come here after tech and I would study, or I would come here after my real estate class and I would study, and I would just like help my mom, or send out the request for update insurance or whatnot. And so like, that's how I guess I started getting into it a little bit more. But then after I quit going to tech, and after I started taking real estate more seriously, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do, I guess that's when I started to get more serious. And with the townhouse project, that really had a big effect on me wanting to get my license, because it's like, I could represent Southeastern as a real estate agent and just, sell houses but make money,
So, for context for the viewers, Southeastern may or may not be involved in a 96-unit townhome development going on in North Carolina. We're
just the builders, guys. Just the builders.
And Bree has signed on. We can talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bree has signed on to, I guess, how would you word that? Represent the townhomes?
So I signed up with Grant Mayr, a real estate company here in Fayetteville, where they specialize in residential and commercial. And so my dad kind of helped me with that. He was like, I want you to, hang your license up with a good firm. I want someone that's going to teach you, but teach you the right way, not someone that's going to lead you astray. Like, yeah, they're teaching you, but maybe it's not the way that you should do it. So I met with Gary, we talked and stuff like that. Gary's a great guy. Like, I instantly, clicked, and I guess it's his personality. But after that, so I hung my license up with Grant Mayr, and then we made a deal, or brought in a deal where I would work for Grant Mayr and they would represent Richland Townhomes. So that's where that came in. And so, yeah, working a deal in there.
And so I think one of the key things is that we talk about different stages of business and things of that nature, is that one of the key things is the ability to create or foster win-win win situations. And you know, the Bible says is that as men or fathers, we're supposed to leave an inheritance to our children's children. Well, to do that, you got to set your children up right. You know, like that's the first step. So, you know, when I was looking at, okay, well, how do I model that? Okay, well, we've got this opportunity. Somebody's going to list these 90, 94, 96 townhouses that we end up doing.
And I always said, I want to be a part of that. Why let someone outside the house sell it when you have an agent in the house?
Well, another lesson I learned too, I spent a lot of years trying to invest and pour myself and shape and mold other people at various times that would come on board with the company, and then it was a constant letdown because my blessing and my curse is that I can see me in almost anyone because we all kind of the same. Like, you know what I mean? Especially with I come from, you know, the kind of lowest totem of the spectrum as far as being an orphan foster child and growing up in social services and, you know, and having to come from that all the way to trying to become the American dream. You know what I mean? So I can look at anyone, and all anyone has to do, reality, is to seem to want an opportunity, and I give 150% into them. But the least little bit of struggle, the least bit of difficulty, the time that I got to get on to you because you're not doing right, and I got to talk with you with a stern voice, people want to flake. And, you know, even though, you know, and a lot of times it's because they don't have a vision of themselves and where they're going. So eventually, you know what, after prayer, and it just wasn't working no matter what I tried. And I said, you know what, Lord, you know my intentions. I really, you know, want to have a team around me that wants to see the best, that's willing to help, because I had a problem, still kind of do somewhat of delegating. And part of that is a trust issue.
Still working on that.
We're still working on that. You know, 20 years of having to do the things the way I've done it, you just don't over that in a year or two, you know?
I think last week was the first time in probably 20 years that you literally stayed at home, didn't have much interaction with the business or anything. And I was surprised.
And it's because he was sick.
Yeah, it's because he was sick. Because if he wasn't, he would be at the office. Yeah. But that was like the first time, even before when he was sick, it's like get to work. So that's why the other day when I had told you, like, I was feeling sick too, but I was like, dang, I can't stay home. Like, well, you know what I mean? I grew up seeing you work when you're sick, so it's like, I can't stay home. I have and I didn't want to be like, oh, like I'm held to a certain higher standard, but if this company is one day going to be mine, I have to start molding myself to understand that there's certain times you have to work whether you want to or not, whether you're feeling bad or not. Like, I didn't want to get out of bed, but I was like, I got to go to work.
And it's been a joy and a privilege to be able to witness you guys going through these growths and these lessons, because I can sense that from you guys, and I can sense the true dedication. And at the same time, you are now reaping rewards from over 20 years of dedication and hard work and investment into your future and your family. It's always important to maintain a level of that. However, you're not in the same place now that you were when you started.
Right. And
there are adjustments that can and ought to be made in this season.
Yep.
And it was enjoyable to watch you come in. I think it was like yesterday or Monday, and say, I think it was yesterday.
It was
came
Wednesday,
in,
because he was still at home Monday. Yeah.
He came in and he was like, yeah, guys, from now on, when we're sick, let's just stay home so we don't spread it. And, you know, like, there's not a lot that we can't do at home from our computers. And
I think that's the reason why, is because we have a good system. We have a good team.
A great team and a great system.
Kennedy and Kyle, that they work beyond. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's another thing, seeing them. Yeah, and Mark. But, you know.
Troy and Adam.
Yeah, everybody too. But, you know.
Amore.
Everybody, you know, there's Kennedy and Kyle, and just seeing her run the office the way she does without ever stepping foot on a job site, it's like, I want to be her. You know what I mean? And, like, shout out to Kennedy. I know she can hear me sitting in the front office. But, like, you know, she's a great example of what someone who, you know, you're handed this project or this job, and she can do it to a T. Like, she knows everything, probably more about the job than my dad would know about the job. And it's like, okay, I want to be her, but for my company. You know what I mean? I want to be on top of things the way she's on top of things. So, like, you know, she's pregnant, and it's like, okay, well, now this is real. Because I thought I had more time. Like, I thought, you know, I got 2 more years to really, like, learn what I need to learn. But now it's like, you got 9 months. You know what I mean? Like, the clock's ticking. And now she's doing, what, January? So it's like, okay.
And that's a funny parallel between how this business started with your own.
Yeah, and now
with your pregnancy.
And no one's ever been pregnant, you know, while working with us. So it's like kind of cool, like to see, like, you know, this is gonna be the mascot baby.
Right.
But yeah, so she's like someone that she holds this together, and everybody that, you know, we work with, they always talk highly of her. So she's someone that I want to be like that too, like. You know what I mean? So we have a great team, a great system, and that's probably the only reason why he was comfortable being out those 6 days, because he knew he had a team he can trust, and that's something that it won't change, I don't think.
Absolutely, and I think you know, not only is it beneficial for you to take that time now and to I guess leverage that opportunity you've built for yourself. I think it's also going to set you up for longevity, because as we get older and as we develop into these different stages of our life, we're not meant, no tree is in full bloom every season, every year. You know what I'm saying? Like things ebb and flow, and there is I think a true art and a beauty in knowing when you're being called to step back, let the business operate and run as you've designed it to, and know when and where to be involved and where to set up those boundaries for yourself.
Yeah, no one's shutting you out. It's just, you know, letting you, you know, loosen up the reins some, give someone else the reins.
And, you know, and that's the thing where we all have to, in each role, no matter what the role is, you have to be willing to listen, you know, because like you said, that was the whole goal. You know, but when you struggle, I mean, think about it. If you come from an environment where you've struggled for everything, sometimes when it is your season, and it's coming so easy, it's almost like we self-sabotage you if we're not careful. It's a trap.
And that's just not with business. That's like with anything, with life in general. You have good things coming. You don't believe it, and like you're so used to the chaos that you create chaos because you're comfortable in chaos.
Yeah, and so I'm very aware of myself. That's one thing I think that anybody will say. I'm never the type of person to be like, oh no, regret. Actually, yeah, I am like that. You know what? And I do need to change that. Then comes the hard part.
Changing it.
Actually changing it. You know what I mean? However, though, it goes right back to where we got started, is that, you know, I look at this business just like it's my child. You know what I mean? So you imagine when you look at, to understand me, that's all you got to do when it comes to that. It's like, okay, yeah, he's sick. Yeah, he's got an accident. He's up and everything. But guess what? Wouldn't you not be that way by your child if you're entrusting someone or a team, like, you know, to take care of your child when, you know, when you're not able to, you know, especially if it's, you know, I ain't going to say in the infant stages. We're kind of past
20 years.
You know what I'm saying? But it's still the same, you know, until it's proven. That's been one of my biggest problems in the past. It caused me so much pain, is you give people responsibilities or you trust them with certain things, and they haven't been proven. You give them that too early.
Yeah, and that's one thing for me, like coming in, you know, I grew up in business, but I don't know much about it. So it's like I'm still sometimes I feel like I still have to prove myself, or like I can't let the ball drop, because for me that's a huge embarrassment. Like, you know what I mean? And I'll give this example. You know, we did this signed job on Fort Liberty or whatnot, and we had one last task to do. And I was ready that day. Like, I had everything by the door, you know, like, okay, I'm always early for those type of jobs, like 30 minutes early. So I put my boots by the door, because everybody knows steel toes boots hurt and you don't want to be wearing them all day. So I put them by the door, and I'm like, okay, let me get my breakfast. Let me go out the door. I get to Fort Liberty, and I forget my boots at home. And instantly I was like so stressed. Like, I was crying because I felt like I had let everybody else down. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, like I let the ball drop or whatever. And it was a huge embarrassment for me, because I'm like, I shouldn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I get onto people for. And I'm over here, you know what I mean? Doing that same thing. So it's like, oh my God, you know, the ball drop. But then you just have to learn from that. So now I keep them in my car, but
And that's something, beside, is that situation there is where the roles blended. And it puts me in a very peculiar spot, because I got to say something.
Yeah, and
I gotta correct that.
And then I'm over there. I'm in the driving to pick it up, and I pass by him. I'm like, oh my god. And then I'm like, okay, Kennedy, don't tell him what's going on because I know how he's gonna react. I know my dad 20 years, right? So I kind of can tell how he'll react in certain situations, and I'm like, okay, I cannot tell him right now. He's gonna go off on me. He's gonna say something, and I felt embarrassed, so I didn't want him to know because I was too embarrassed for him to say something to me. So then eventually, I knew he was going to call me out on it eventually. And, he did. So, yeah.
So, yeah, from your perspective, how did that go? Or how did it go the way you anticipated it was going to go?
I already knew that you were going to do that. So I was kind of prepared. But it was I was already getting onto myself about that. But then I guess in your situation, you're the boss. So, if you don't say something, it's you're just letting, you know what I mean? You're okay with it. But even though I was already getting onto myself about it, you still had to make sure that you addressed it because if not, you know what I mean?
What do you, if Mark was to ask you, what stuck out to you about that conversation? If you could summarize it, what would you have said based on the conversation we had to correct that?
What stuck out to me?
Yeah, from that, from me having to address that and how I handled that.
So,
on a personal level or on a professional level?
I knew what I was going to say and I was kind of slipping my mind. Basically, even though I messed up, you were it's okay. You still, you addressed the issue, but you were still it's okay. You know what I mean? Now you know. So next time you won't have that issue. You won't have that problem. So, even though there was an issue, it's okay, how do we learn from this?
It felt supportive.
Yeah. And so I think that's how he is with everything in the business. It's okay, we have an issue or something's gone wrong on the job site, but how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? How can we prevent this?
And I'll say this just, for everybody's watching, one thing to realize, because everybody works with or for some other company, you know what I mean? And the thing is, I tell people, treat it like it's yours. Because everybody's not going to run into this situation, but you never know what position you may find yourself in when you are that guy or that girl that can be counted upon. And I don't know about any of y'all, but I'm gonna tell you something. My sister, Dobbin, there was a time where we were riding her, she's riding her wheel, and we went to this hearing about what she wanted to have happen in the event of her passing.
I still don't know anything that was talked about in the.
So we were there. I don't really know what the deal is, other than, she wants me there, and, but hearing her say what she said, it stuck with me. And basically it was her daughter. Her daughter's, handicapped, and, she's had to take care of her whole life, and, she's 76, 77, something like that now. And of course, time's not promised for any of us, but, she could go any day now. She wants to make sure that her daughter's taken care of. And the judge was asking her, about, making sure that what she had in her will, how she wanted things done, was what she wanted. And she's the one that's helped me get to where I'm at. But the thing that she said was that she's with her dog, she said, if something was to happen to me, my wife, me and Diana is going to, we've going to make sure we take care of her daughter in the event of her passing or whatnot. And then we got another family member too that, Keisha, that, my sister trusts is also to kind of be supportive of one another. So that gives her a sense of comfort that, she knows, like any of us, we want to make sure our family and our loved ones going to be taken care of in the event that we're not there. But she made a comment to the judge, and the judge was almost grilling her, asking her why. Why him or why her or why? She said, because I know that if he tells me that he's going to do it, I ain't got to worry about nothing. And that stuck with me. That she's got that kind of confidence and faith in me. And so what that tells me is that I don't know about, I just say, I want to be that type of person, where if I tell my clients or tell my wife or and I ain't always been that type of person. I don't think I have. My sister saw something in me a long time, and she said I've always been like that, but I don't think
At
I
least
have.
I think with her, it's a different situation because she was there for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what I mean? How does it say? Unconsciously, you do certain things for certain people that's always been there for you. Like, no matter what, they'll never have to ask you. You'll always do it because it's your way of repaying them or showing them that you're grateful for everything that they've done for you. So it's like no questions asked, it's done. You know what I mean? And I think that's where that comes in at.
And so to me, that's a blessing and a curse too, because guess what? I shouldn't, but I expect that. You know what I'm saying? In business and when you're dealing with people, if you go around having that expectation, you're going to get let down almost every single time. And that's what my life's been like for the few times where I don't. You know what I'm saying? But my goal is to have a team surrounded by me, know their role in the company, see where they fit in, and want to see us win. And, take that same level of pride to where if they tell you that something's going to get, I don't want us to have to video document anything. I would love to have a company where
but that ain't
nothing
changing.
has to, because if Mark tells me it's done, if Bree tells me it's done, if whoever says that was the way it is, I will lay down on this, what if I have to. But unfortunately, in today's world, that ain't always possible. But that's ultimately like what one of my goals is, and I gotta lead with that. But also too, sometimes you get your prayers answered, and you still don't recognize it. You know what I mean? So in that situation, like when Bree dropped the ball on that, I could have, if I'm not careful, I'll react like we all do off of emotions, because one of my pet peeves is I despise having the same mistake over and over. And the thing that I need for all of y'all to understand is that every mistake that you're probably going to do, I've already done it. So to me, it's almost like a repeatable mistake, even though it's not me. You know what I mean? So
And,
I have to.
Growing up, for me at least, my dad was a little bit stern, I would say, more than he is now. So, like, I seen when he would get angrier, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, in a way, it's sad to say, but in a way, I still see it like that, at least for me, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like, I can't let him down, this could happen, or like, you know what I mean? I know I'm not gonna get whooped because I'm like 20 years old, but
Sure about
that. But I mean, there's still certain reactions that I'm like, okay, he might get angry, or you know what I mean? But like, even though that's not the case, because RJ,
Because no matter how he's composing himself in the present, you know what's underneath.
Not say underneath, because he's not really like that anymore. I guess with time, with time people change, or like after so many kids, you change, I guess.
Do you feel like that, Ralph? Do you feel like it's still there, but you respond differently now?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's an intentional effort for the most part, but as we get older, we do get wiser. That's why I think when we see our, how our mom raised us, or our, whatever situation, then you see you have your kids, and you always hear that, oh, they don't handle the grandkids. Well, that's because they're wiser. They seen it the way that they handled you. They could have handled that differently, got the same outcome.
So now, like, whenever I see him interacting with RJ, or like RJ do something, like even Maya will tell you, because Maya's at the house all the time, but she's like, oh, RJ doesn't get whooped as much, this and that and third. And like, I mean, he gets, spankings or whatever, but it's like, okay, you're chilled out. Like, you've chilled out a whole lot.
It's almost like as we age, we learn grace. And I mean, as the youngest child myself with two older sisters, I also caught the most graceful version of my parents.
Yeah, so you would know, you would understand.
Yeah, and I think that's a common theme in families is
And then yesterday I was talking to my aunt, we're talking about people, getting pregnant and all that stuff, and then we were talking about how, you change when you have grandkids or whatnot. And I'm like, I wonder how my dad would be when he has, when he has grandkids, like if certain stuff that no doubt about it wouldn't slide in the house would slide, you know what I mean? And I don't like, I told her, I was like, I don't think he would be that way. Like he would change or soften that much. Maybe my mom just a little bit because, it's her grandkid or whatever. But I feel like, he might.
I mean, I think there are certain non-negotiables with everything. One thing I know, I will not tolerate disrespect.
Yeah, that for sure.
Like it don't even matter where we're at. There's just certain things I'm not going to tolerate. But at the same time, too, when you get older, you're supposed to get wiser, and everything doesn't require me to go from 0 to 100. You know what I mean? Off of every little thing. And sometimes, Bree, Maya, RJ, everybody's different. I've learned that sometimes, or, even interacting, business has taught me everything, man. Like, when I see failure in business, the same root causes of failure in business, I apply it to my home.
But then again, like, even though, you don't like going from, like, 0 to 100 or whatnot, like, I'm kind of great. In a way, I'm kind of grateful that there was that stern, even though he got angry sometimes, what I mean? In a way, it caused us to, everybody in the family, all the kids, if they acted up, hey, Ralph, here's Uncle Ralph, or, he's going to take care of it, So there was that respect that he's not going to let anything slide. And from that comes, that brings out respect for that person because, no matter what you do, even when it's wrong, he's going to correct you. You know what I mean? So, like, everybody in the family has respect for him because of that. So, like, I'm grateful that there was that discipline or that sternness because, I don't know. I don't know if I would be how I am now, or I see certain kids now, outside of, in our family, outside of family, whatever. But there's that lack of discipline in the home, and you just see how they interact, how it bleeds into their personal life or their interactions with other people, and how they just, like, disrespect other people that perhaps they should respect. And it's like, I'm glad my dad raised me that way because no matter what, I'll always have respect for other people. You know what I mean? And, like, yeah.
I think there's a certain level of sternness that fathers have to cultivate integrity within their families and within their children. And I think you guys are a prime good example of it. And I think we're, surrounded in this world a lot with the opposite. So, kudos to you guys. I'm curious, Bree, since you've came into the business, and this is really a question for both of you guys, since you've came into the business, how has your relationship as a father-daughter duo, how has that affected your relationship?
So I think I talk with Maya about this a lot because, before growing up, there was always that work. So, like, our relationship probably wasn't as close as what Maya and RJ's relationship was growing up. And sometimes, which it's changing. Before I say anything, no, it's changing. But sometimes, like, coming in, I'd see our relationship more of, like, surrounded by business. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about business. But in a way, I think that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, we still get the life advice or whatnot, but we connect on me wanting to learn more about the business or me, you know what I mean? That's like, I guess, each child and parent connect on a different way. So, like, RJ could be, he has a lot in common with my dad or his resemblance with my dad, but then mine could be my interest in business. So, like, I mean, our relationship is getting, I feel like it's getting better, but that's with all the kids. And I would say, yeah, I mean.
And I mean, too, again, it's a series of correction. I mean, I've made sure that I knew when I was getting a lot of things wrong, but my desire has always been, no matter what the outcome was, and you talk about intentions, you know what I mean, good intentions, or the saying with good intentions too, right? So that don't guarantee the outcome always that you want, and and I'm smart enough to realize that. So, I've had candid conversations with each one of them as a family, and I've let them know, hey, sometimes you gotta let people know what your intentions are, and that you're going to get it wrong. And I know I've got it wrong, but not to make an excuse. I don't believe in excuses. However, here's why I act this way or I think this way, and I know I need to change this. And I mean, there was a conversation I remember having with that. I told him, like, I know I've gotten a lot of things wrong, and I'm sorry about that. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to get everything right. However, this is what I'm trying to do. And this is what my goals are. This is what my intentions are. I don't want to be the father to where all your interactions with me is where I'm going to 0 to 100 because you're not listening. And I'm telling you over and over and you're not, you know what I mean? Like, but also at the same time, you as a child, you as a young human being has a certain role as well. We are the authority because if you don't submit to the authority at home, and your mom and dad don't have the control over you like me, then what are we raising? And that's where I think, everybody can raise their families the way that they want to. However, I take that responsibility fully. Me and my wife, and sometimes I've gotten it wrong to where the least little thing, boom, like well, no, you don't have to handle it like that. With Maya, you don't have to be like that. Maya's a lot more tenderhearted.
Yeah, we're
stuff with
a lot
Bree.
different.
But in like with Bree, one of the things I wanted, well, not just with Bree, but with all three of them, and even with my wife, is I was raised not to have. I'm not really emotional like that. I can be. Certain things to where just because of my upbringing, it'll pull on your heartstrings pretty quick. But other than that, like 90%, nah.
And I think Maya and I were like that. We're not, you know what I mean, to a certain extent. Like, you try to hug, like, it's like, okay, or you see certain things and you're like what, you know what I mean?
And that's one thing that I regret. I'll say.
But with RJ, it's completely different. Like for a boy, you would never think, but he's like the most like loving, nurturing, like, you know what I mean? He's like, oh, I love you. Like no matter what, he's always going to make sure that you know that he loves you. And I think that just goes to show you how much it's changed, or like how much my parents have changed over time. Because at first, we probably didn't say I love you all the time or enough or whatnot. But then, and so that's probably why Maya and I are like kind of more of
and don't beat yourself up about that too much. Our family was the same way over at my house. Like we didn't do all that extra stuff, and when I saw other people doing it, it was strange. And as I got older, I realized like, oh, I actually want that, and I want to cultivate that in my family. And I'm watching my sister, who has 2 kids, cultivate that within her family. And we've changed and developed to where I've, it got to the point where I started telling my mom, hey, I love you when we get off the phone. And then one day she starts saying it back, and now it's regular.
And, I was reading a book or listening to an audio or whatnot, and he was talking about that. He was like, you just start off by saying, I love you, and just see where it goes. And even if they don't say it at first, with time, they'll start to open up and they'll start to say it back to you.
Yeah, because we're living in a different time now.
Oh, yeah,
now we have conversations about mental health, and we have conversations about emotional intelligence and stuff. And I mean, in the world that your dad comes from, and the world that I got a glimpse of in my early years, that stuff was not even in the vocabulary of things to discuss.
And that's crazy, when you think about it, because imagine coming up in an environment to where that's a weakness.
Oh yeah.
Like, dude, what you're painted as being soft, and which is stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, the idea is we only got a limited amount of time here. And the thing is, I try to have a vision to where I see myself 75 years old, 80, whatever that length of time, when I should be accomplished whatever it is I'm setting. Now looking back, what do I wish I would have done differently? And that's helped put a lot, and then it's almost like I got the luxury and the benefit of waking up and I'm still 41 or 42 or whatever. It's like, okay, I still got time to change how I interact with Bree. RJ's still smaller, so I can change my Maya, you know what I mean? I got to work on change with my wife. I got to, with my business, with this. But you know what? I'm not 80 and then realizing this.
I think that's what a lot of us should be doing, though, because that helps you appreciate the now and what you have now, because literally tomorrow's not promised. You could be here today and then you go home, God forbid you're in a car accident and it's all gone. And then like that's why I started to realize too, because I mean where we stay, in rent or whatever, we're losing people like crazy. People are dying left and right, and it's just like I need to appreciate the people that I'm surrounded by now, like my aunt or whatnot. And we don't say I love you or whatnot, but that's something that or even a hug, but that's something that we should try to do more because.
And it's uncomfortable at first.
Yeah.
It's weird.
For sure.
At first.
It's very weird.
But it's vulnerability, and it's taking that step and showing these older people who might be a little more set in their ways, like, it's okay.
But I feel like you can also demonstrate your love for them without even having to say it. Like you being there for her. She knows that you love her just by you. You know what I mean? She needs you're there. And I think that's one way that maybe the older generation receives love necessarily, because, back they are a little bit no, they're way harder than this generation is.
We're soft.
Yeah, we've gone soft, guys.
Snowflakes.
Yeah, snowflakes. But, you know, that's might be how they receive love, just knowing that they can count on you, they can rely on you. And I see that with my aunt, you know, with my uncle, whatever they need, like, hey, I'm there. Like, even though, like, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, man, I don't feel like going to do that. I still do it because, you know what, that's me showing that, you know what I mean, I care about you, I appreciate you.
You know, one of the things is that sticks in my mind, and it's an amazing analogy, and we all see it. And sometimes we don't recognize it. You know how, like, you know, this puppy, you know what I mean? We come home or whatever. Ain't it amazing how when you have an animal like that and you go away for a day? Right, with this puppy, you can go away for an hour. You leave this
5 minutes,
and you come back. She is jumping up and down, barking.
Like, she does not want you to put her down.
Happiest thing, like, you are the thing that makes that animal the most happiest, and you can do it 20 times a day, and they're going to react this every time they see you. And I started realizing, I'm like, you know what, we go about our day in and day out, go to work, come home, do this, do that, and we take it so for granted that, you know what, when I come, I'm going to see Bree. Bree asked me this morning, like, and this is exactly what I was thinking about on the way last night, actually, when I was, you know, we was, you know, praying and whatnot, and I came in, and, you know, she came out of the room back, and I grabbed her and hugged her.
I thought he was sick.
She was like, you know,
I thought he was sick, legit, because his you know, like, he was like coughing a little bit. I was like, oh, no, hug me. I'm not trying to get sick. Like, no. But yeah.
You know, it's just the fact of when you seeing someone, I said, I want to change that about me. Like, when I see my wife, when I see my kids, you know, and I notice older people do that. I think about Giselle's husband's dad.
Honda, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He's the, when I think of that, I think of him. I mean, we got baptized at the same time. And, you know, we were friendly and, you know, did some church activities and stuff. But when I think of that trait, he had it where every time he would see me, and it wasn't just with me, it was with a lot of people.
It was with everybody.
It was like, oh, Ralph, hey, how you doing? And, you know, man, everything good? And, man, I'm so glad to see you, man. You know, I was thinking about you the other day, and how is this? Ain't it crazy how, depending on what stage you're in, we will look at that and be like, yeah, you know, like, what? And I'm like, why are we like that? We act like we want to live 300 years, and tomorrow's not promised. And when that person's gone, then you're gonna live with the regret. You know, and I think it's all in the environment you're in. So I'm trying to make an intentional effort to correct that thing, and then not just. But I gotta first do it before they see it.
Yeah, it's so funny.
You know what I mean?
Because going back to what I was saying about RJ being the affectionate one, he'll go up and, like, hug my sister. My sister's like, get off me. You know what I mean? But, like, it's just cool to see, like, with time how, you know, that changes, or, you know, you just, you can see the difference in the family, you know, in the family or whatnot. And I don't know, I love RJ to death, but sometimes I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know? But yeah.
But, you know, it's just, we're on an amazing journey, and I am just so thankful that we still have time, or we've had time to make the corrections that we've made. So even if today, like I said, it'll leave out, and, you know, God forbid something, I'm good. Like, you know, I made a post last night or the other night where I realized I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish. I mean, you know, my kids won't have to say that they grew up the way that I grew up, won't have the experiences I've experienced. They got a much better foundation, got a much better start. And, you know, I've grown, changed a lot. Some of the major flaws that I feel like I've had, I've worked on them. And, you know, with the business, what we've accomplishing with the business, I'm not quite there yet, but we're almost where I want the company to be, to where, and where that is where, you know, if something happens to me, you know, we say our, you know, goodbyes, but you know what? Somebody needs to be up in that pulpit and say, hey, now he showed you the path. He done it. He didn't cheat nobody. He didn't rob it. He got it the right way. You know what I mean? And look, he's left a legacy, and he's built a foundation for a business, and hopefully it continues on and continues to thrive and even do better. But now in Bree, it's time for her to find her soulmate and have her children. They're building on
Pretty single, everybody.
they're building on a solid foundation, you know, and like she knows what to look for. You know, a lot of us, you know, we're not taught that. I mean, what is a good man? What is a good woman? And that definition can change from one family to another. But, you know, I look at it like this, you know, a lot of us, we go to church and we read the Bible and this, but there's a blueprint. You know what I'm saying? This is one thing like I try to tell her, you know, she's seen my journey. She knows my story, you know, but however, there's statistics, you know, I'm one of them in one sense, but there's also a blueprint in what to look for. And not saying that people can't change. I'm the very example of someone who can and
Most
will.
people don't, though.
But you have to acknowledge, though, and you have to pray for wisdom and discernment to know, you know, what are your basic odds? You know what I mean? And is someone willing to put forth the work and the energy and effort to become the best version of themselves? And if not, maybe you probably don't want to get entangled with that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with clients. You know, and that's you know, like you're looking on a client, they may have the money, all the money in the world, and I've learned this lesson. Got all the money. Like that's the ultimate goal you want in business. You know, money's no problem. Yeah, say yes to that and check back in with me in 8 months when you're knee deep in the project. Money ain't a problem, but now what is your problems? You know, so I'm very blessed. I'm very thankful, and you know, it is a blessing to see Bree in the business, even though you know I didn't try to shape it one way or another.
It wasn't intentional.
You know, but you know, it's like I told her. I said, you know, my job is to make sure I set you up, and not just her, but if Maya decides to want to come in on the business, or even if they don't, my job is to set them up as best as possible. Some parents will say, you know, well, I had to get it out the mud. You know, you're going to get it out the mud, and you know what I mean. No, you know, I want them to does not have to do that. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a really valuable tidbit in there too for parents who are trying to raise children and who have a business and are hoping that those children may get involved. It sounds like you had a certain detachment from the idea of any of the children getting involved in the business. And I would almost be willing to bet that freedom, that non-attachment is what invited Bree in versus you almost forcing it over time, creating a resistance and pushing her away when you're trying to bring her in.
Yeah,
right?
that's something I think like parents that own business, they need to be careful of, because you can, just how people, you know, they say, oh, but I feel like you're shoving God down my throat. That just makes them
almost
straight.
like it's expected of you and you have no choice, no free will.
So I think that's something that, you know, business owners who are parents need to be careful of, because you could want your child to be in the business like all you want, but if they feel forced, if they feel like it's shoved down their throat, you can forget about it.
It's almost like you have to show them that you love them as a parent no matter what.
Yeah.
More so than you are here to step into my shoes.
And for example, like me and my sister and whatnot, you know, we're both the type, if we feel like you're forcing us to do something, we're just gonna be like, you know, I'm good, I'm off that. I don't want to do that. That's why with her, you know, I'm like, I tell her like, hey Maya, like, you know, there's money to be made in, you know, in the government side or whatever you want to do, but I don't want her to feel like, you know, oh, but you're in the business, so you want me to be, I have to be in the business, or
and that reality might not set in for her until she's in the same boat you were in when you started becoming a young adult. But the thing is,
I didn't have much of a plan, but my sister has a plan. Like, she already, you know what I mean? She already kind of knows where she wants to go, and I mean, eventually it could lead to something working out, you know, with both companies, but she already knows. She's already ready to take early community college or whatnot, so she has a better idea of what she wants to do. But with me, I didn't have much of an idea, you know what I mean? Like, I was a senior, still had to apply to any colleges when I was supposed to do that my junior year. Yeah, and then, I mean, there's RJ, which he's really gifted at drawing and stuff like that, so maybe blueprints, you know, not taking Adam out of the picture, but maybe, you know, blueprints might be the way that he goes or whatnot. And, you know, growing up, RJ did have more experience, like, on the job sites or whatever, because he would ride with my dad or whatnot. My dad would take him to job sites or whatnot. So I think that might come back in the future, or, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I would just like to state, RJ, when you're watching this in the future, I was present at the Lumbee homecoming when you sold your very first drawing to a very nice woman. It was an honor to witness the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey there.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like, Ralph, you're entering a season of fulfillment, of almost wishes granted, of reaping fruits of your labor that you've been planting seeds for 20 years, and now you have trees that are bearing fruit. Bree, I'm curious, what does fulfillment look like to you in the realm of business and personal life?
I don't think I've really thought about that, but I know at some point, like I was telling my sister yesterday, I think it was, that, you know, when the time comes, like I'm 19, like I still got, Lord willing, I still got 50 years under my belt or whatever. I still got time, but eventually I want to be able to get to a point. My dad might not want to retire, right? But I want to get to a point where I could live somewhere else, but still be able to run things here, like have multiple companies open up here, but I'm living in, say, Puerto Rico or whatnot, or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to feel tied down to North Carolina, but still tied to the business. That would bring me, if not now, but in the future, that would bring me fulfillment.
Nice.
Because, you know, I mean, North Carolina is great, but, like, let's be honest, there's greater places.
Well, I've been around the world a little bit, and I love North Carolina.
And, yeah, you still come back here, so.
I think this is the best state in the country.
I wouldn't say Fayetteville, but, you know, North Carolina.
We are a growing city. So a lot of room for development out here.
And, you know, and that goes back to that thing that's interesting. Everything's about perspective. And the good thing about perspective is that it changes with time.
Yeah, because when I was your age, Bree, I also wanted to get out of the town.
Oh, we know. You went to California and came
hollering
back.
about, but, you know, you might settle on down, come on home.
But, okay, so where do you see yourself in the business in 5-10 years?
Wow. Selling those townhouses. I'm like,
I hope they're sold by
I know.
no
right?
way. But I mean, if we got 96, they go. You know what I mean? It's gonna take time to build all 96 townhomes.
We should be done in 2 years.
Well, yeah, 2 years. But then, you know, 5 years from now, am I, you know, having more, you know, more, what's the word? I guess
money.
More money. More money, of course.
Well, and I will say this. Let me interject on that. You know, I was saying earlier, you know, how as you get older, you learn more, you do correction. One thing I noticed about Bree was as I started applying what I had to learn in business to be successful in reading clients and understanding what drives them, what motivates them, what their ambitions are, and what peps them up. And every time I would learn and make those advancements in business, God would always speak to me, you know, hey, now how does this apply to your wife, to your kids, you know, and as I started learning different things like that, I started noticing, and it was with one of the clients, I ain't going to say with which specific client, but Bree was overhearing one of the conversations, I know. And I
exactly.
noticed she had never took interest like that with any particular client or any particular project that we were doing. But
Can we say name?
No.
Oh.
And but I picked up on that, and I saw the reasons why, and I'm like, so
I was like, I want to be like her.
yeah. So
I wanna
she,
be like
so
her.
she likes that. Well, this business can provide that. So I intentionally.
Is it a certain lifestyle? Is
Yes.
it
Yeah,
like
certain lifestyle.
That's why.
you are a little bougie, Bree.
We know.
For the
Everybody
viewers at
knows.
home who
Everybody
may not know her as well as I do.
But no, that's probably why I was more attracted to like the real estate and all that stuff, because in my eyes there's certain attire that comes with that, certain, you know, personas and connections and stuff like that, and I was like, I want to be like that. I want to have that. I want to be driving that G-Wagon. Not really, but, you know, I want the luxury that comes with that. So it's like, if I want that, this is where I need to be, or this is the place for me to get to that point.
And the thing I had to realize is, like, for me, it's never been about that.
Yeah.
Like, for me, my personality, which for me, it was about, again, you know, God always put it in my heart to be not a manual worker, even though I could do okay at that. But the moment she had where that clicked with her was with me seeing another GC when I was smaller, driving up in his nice vehicle.
It seems like you wanted freedom.
I wanted freedom, man. Like that has always been there's always a bare minimum. You got to provide. You got to pay the bills. Your kids got to have a roof over their head. So that was my first thing. But anything above that was the freedom. Now there's pressure as entrepreneurs. So if you got to have your wife support, you better be able to communicate to get your wife to see your vision and be on your side every step of the way. Or else it's going to be a tremendous challenge, because when you're in those valleys and things are tough, if she don't see that vision of where you're going, it's going to be difficult. I saw that vision early on with that other GC and the freedom that he's gotten. And so I've learned when I saw that with Bree, I'm like, okay, so I remember how that motivated me. It wasn't so much the money, it was the freedom and the fact that I could do what was in my heart to do and have that level of freedom.
See, I've always been the one in the family that likes the luxury designer, stuff like that. Like, that's, my mom's like, you must have been born in the wrong family, because none of them are like that. But
That's how my oldest sister is too. It might be a
yeah,
oldest sister thing.
But I don't know. I guess that just, if I want to have that certain lifestyle where I can travel, visit these places, have these nice cars, nice homes, or whatever, this is a pathway to get to that or whatnot. Not saying that money's gonna buy my happiness, or you know what I mean, or the success, but I think it will. Money does, like, without money, like, people say, oh, you can't buy money, you know what I mean, money don't buy your happiness or whatever, but it brings a certain lifestyle that allows you to be happy, to have that freedom, to spend time with family, which brings happiness, joy.
I am so glad you didn't say what I thought you was
What
going to say.
what do you think I was going to say?
I thought you was going to quote a line I heard on TikTok or somewhere. And the person was like, oh, you know how people say that money don't buy you happiness? Only broke people say that.
But, I mean, so money does, like, it creates
well, the absence of money
opportunities for
surely doesn't
yeah.
create.
Well, and the thing about it is that no matter what we all say, look at the amount of stress we all deal with in our personal lives when there is a lack of money.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it don't matter what we say, we have to face those consequences, right? And so one of the things that I did as business started, like, doing a lot better, I'm like, you know what, let me try this with her just to see. Let her see what's possible. Not leaning or nudging one way or another, but hey, I want you to follow, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, and I need you to take notes. If you don't mind, and let me show you what's possible.
Dude, being able to be in one meeting and get 3 other deals out of one meeting that wasn't even meant for that one meeting, that kind of opened my eyes too. Like, we were sitting in here working out the townhome deal, and two other deals came out of that, or one other deal came out of that, and I'm like, I look at him, I'm like, dude, we just, like, how did we go from one deal to 2 deals?
Now we're shooting triple doubles.
Right. And it's like, just, those opportunities that really, like, open my eyes and whatnot. So, like, yeah. I mean, not just the luxury, but,
In which you don't want to paint a picture of everybody's different. God made every one of us different, and it's not that it's bad. Anything could be made bad. If you're into driving the Mercedes, Troy likes Mercedes. You know what I'm saying? Troy's one of the best persons you're ever going to meet.
And he's always too blessed to be stressed.
Always too blessed to be stressed. But for me or for you, you might be good in just your whatever. But the idea is you're true to yourself. But God puts that in us because that might be the thing that motivates you to get up and go and da-da-da-da-da, right? And so for me, that's one of the things that, I prayed about. And, with Brie, I was like, well, let me try that with her. And it seemed to have worked. You know what I mean? And so the idea is that there is a pathway here, and you're not having to start from scratch and learn and go through all those headaches. You're getting kind of a head start here, which, again, like I mentioned before, as a father, I'm obligated to do that.
And a lot of my friends point that out. Like, they'll be like, Bree, like, you have an advantage. Like, you're not like most people. Like, you have, like you said, a head start. Like, you're at an advantage while other people could be at a disadvantage trying to get into this environment. Like me going to Fort Liberty every every other day with my dad or with you or whatnot. You know what I mean? That's me. They see my face. Now it come time for Southeastern to move out the way, and you know, our other company come in. That's where they're like, I know her. I know their reputation. I know that she can be trusted. So it's like, you know what I mean? It creates more of, you know, I do have an advantage because it won't be as hard for me to get in the door because I'm already in the door.
Well, see, the thing that I'm glad of is that, you know, some people when they're in that position, they take advantage of the free pass or, you know, or the entitlement. But one thing at least I haven't seen in Bree is that she will do the work. Like, you know, I noticed in school, you know, she's, I mean, sorry, but you were like a horrible student at one point in time, D's and F's. You know
Dude, that was in elementary school, okay? That was in math.
You know, I used to tell her mom, I'm like, hey, she's like, why are you worried about? I'm like, I was a D and F student.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so
But
it never, I get it, but it never really meant that much to me. But then when I seen that she would outwork, you know, I didn't have to tell her to pick up the books and study. You know, if anything, I tell her, hey, you know, put the books down, it's time to go to sleep. But when I saw that, I'm like, okay, she's got that part of it. You know what I mean? She will do the work.
It took me, I guess, in 3rd grade. You know, I tell my mom this because she's talking about a certain situation that they're going through at home, and I'm like, in 3rd grade, I was in the same position. Like literally, I think the whole year, literally F in math. Like I hate math. I hate it. Like you know, I don't know who would love math, but then
You're going to get to love it.
But then, when it comes to money, for sure. But you know, when it's what they're teaching you in school, it's like pointless. Like
Income minus G-Wagon.
Should be doing all in a head.
No, that I can do. That I can do, and I've shown that. But like, it took me some time. But then once I got to my senior year and I had a good teacher, she like helped me, and I saw that the progress I had made from not understanding math to being able to pass with an A, it like brought satisfaction to me. And it's like, I can do this, you know what I mean? And like, I never really had a choice when it came to school, because like, I think mainly, I have a good worth ethic, I would say, but it's mainly that phone call, like that email. I didn't want to have to deal with that. So it was like, I better get this done before I have to deal with, you know what I mean, with that.
Well, I think it says a lot about your character, and it to be able to recognize like, hey, I am in this position, right? Like I do have an advantage over a 19-year-old girl whose father didn't own the construction company and wants to get into construction, or wants a G-Wagon for that matter, right?
Yeah.
So my point is though, what I've noticed within kids who grow up in those sorts of environments, there's certain types of patterns that happen, right? And I think one of the differentiators is being able to show up and own it and deliver and capitalize on the advantages, rather than trying to almost dismiss them or act like, oh, it's actually hard because of this and that, and oh, I'm actually disadvantaged in these ways, and like kind of running that
And,
narrative, right?
Growing up, my dad, not very sympathetic or whatever, and we all have different personalities, different mindsets, but I think one thing that I really got from my dad was, the poor, he's always talking about that poor me mentality or whatever. Like, you can change the outcome of any situation just by your perception or your, the way you view it. So, like, that's a real thing. Like, that disadvantage, that's just that. I feel like that's that poor me mentality. I don't know. For me, I don't really have that. Like, I don't try to see a certain situation. If it's bad, it is, you can change it just by how you see it, but it is what it is.
I guess the kudos I would like to give to you, Bree, is that there are people that could have been born in your position that would not step up and not leverage and not make the most out of it, might even be ashamed of it and try to.
I think with that, most times that's due to the fact that they've been handed everything their whole life. Like, they don't have to, or they feel like they don't have to. And then the parents are like, oh, what'd I do wrong? I mean, dude, you get me? Like, okay, growing up, I always expected, even though my dad told me he would never, I always expected him to buy my first car. And, there have been instances where, like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a car. Like, there would be subtle hints.
Your 16th birthday coming up.
Yeah, there would be subtle hints making me think that I'm gonna get my first car, and it didn't work out that way. But that's because my dad always made sure that we knew that, nothing we had would be handed to us. Like, okay, for example, we wanted a new phone or like, anything, anything really. You had to listen to audiobooks, give a summary of what you learned, this, and the third. And, sometimes I would go through with it, sometimes I wouldn't, depending on the person's voice, because if they sound bad, they sound bad. I'm not listening to it. But that just made us work for it, or, you know what I mean? It instilled a level of worth ethic that if you want something, you work for it. It's not just going to be given to you, which those kids in those instances that may be in the same position as me, they might be like, have everything handed to them. Oh, I don't have to work for it. My dad got me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I wrecked my Mercedes or whatever. I'll get a new one. You know what I mean? And it like instills that entitlement. Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I deserve that. And then, you know what I mean? It creates, with that can come disrespect. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you've done this my whole life. Why aren't you doing it now? You know what I mean? When the parent actually wants for them to work for something and they don't want to work for something because they see they don't have to, it's harder for them to, respect them. And, you know what I mean? I feel like, at least from what I've seen, it is.
I think that's a challenge, too, because as a parent, when you do become, and when you can, you want to. And it's just such a weird thing because it's coming from such a pure place to where, we can do that. But it's like, that you can't just make everything so easy at the same, even though we're supposed to leave an inheritance.
And you almost want to, because you didn't have
yeah.
these things growing up and you wish you did.
Right.
And you could almost damage the family by living through Bree and then giving her all these things
So
for short-term gratification, knowing that it'd be setting up for some
because it
sort of
feels
failure.
like you're doing the right thing by giving, but you don't understand you're destroying them.
Yeah.
And you don't even notice that until it's too late a lot of the time. So the thing that I've always tried to do is to always realize we're no better than anybody else. We're susceptible to the same problems everybody else is susceptible to. It's mainly the decisions that we make and being honest with ourselves and saying, hey, you know what? If we do this, this is probably what's going to happen. I never had that given to me, but we do want to help. But at the same time, that ain't how life works.
And growing up, people still always thought we were spoiled or whatever. And maybe to a certain extent compared to other people, but that didn't mean like it was just given to us. You know what I mean? It was like I remember, I don't know what grade I was in. I think I was in middle school, maybe early high school. And my dad had this phone. Well, I wanted a phone, right? And he had this equipment around the house. He was like, you know what? If you want a phone, here's this equipment. You can sell it, get the phone. And that's what I did. He didn't go outright and buy the phone. I was like, okay, here you are because you want it. You know what I mean? And not saying that every child that gets handed things to them is, like a brat or like, you know what I mean? Or like, entitled or whatnot. But there are a lot who are. There are some that maybe they're not.
I think it weakens their sense of reality.
Yes.
It makes them feel like they can get something for nothing, and that's against a law of the universe, and you can't.
Yeah. So, that's one thing I remember because I was like, I want a phone. And then it was like, okay, well, if you want a phone, you have to do this.
And more recently, I've seen Bree want the brand new iPhone and write an essay and present it as a business proposal.
I went to ChatGPT, bro.
And was telling Ralph that she'll be able to take high resolution photos of job sites. All kinds of stuff. It was golden.
Listen, because now we have AI, right? So my dad's like, "Oh, AI is your best friend. AI is your best friend." Well, I'm gonna use that to my advantage. You telling me, AI? I'm gonna use AI to get what I want.
There you go. So Bree, tell me, what is one of the most crucial things you think you've learned from your father? It could be life, it could be business. Just what's something that you've learned from Ralph that will always stick with you no matter what?
Your face looks so serious.
So serious.
Let me think. I guess his perception on things, you know what I mean? Like, which now I'm like, everything's about your perception, how you view things, certain situations. You can choose to look at it, like he always says, poor me, or you can look at it as to what can I learn from this, or how can I fix this for next time or for, you know, the future or whatnot. So that's one thing I'd say I take from him. But also, like, you know, the dedication it took. Like, for me, yeah, I'm at a advantage, but that doesn't mean that I won't have those long nights or that I won't have to put in the work or miss out on certain things because of the lifestyle that I want.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes people think that just because you're at an advantage, you don't have to put in as
That you
much
have
work.
a free ride or something.
But in reality, it's not like that. And I know it's not like that because I know my dad's not going to pick up the slack when I'm slacking. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's one thing that, well, two things that I've taken from that. So, yeah.
And I mean, I think about what comes to mind hearing you saying that. You take someone like Michael Jordan, far, you know, fetched from analogy from what he's achieved, but the concepts is the same. You got someone who has a talent, clearly, but he never let that extreme talent. He had even more insane work ethic. Every bit of talent that he had, his work ethic outshined that. And to me, that was the difference that made him who he is. Was, you know, and you read about Kobe Bryant's, you know what I mean, work ethic. Of course, all of them are talented, but the thing that separated them was the work ethic. You know, and so I'm just trying to, in our little slice of the world and what we're doing, you know, show a small glimpse of that, you know, and still try to get it right where I'm not alienating everything else and then end up getting it all wrong.
You know, sometimes it can be overwhelming because in this business, especially for me, like if I want to open up, say, you know, a remodeling company or something, an umbrella company to Southeastern, I have to learn all the roles because I've seen him do that. Like he knows how to run, you know what I mean? He knows how to do Kennedy's job. He knows how to do my mom's job. Like, you know what I mean? He knows how to do everything. So like,
Sometimes he does my job.
yeah, we know Mark. But that just shows me that if I want to be at a certain position, at some point I'm going to have to know how to do everything because, like you said, it's a cycle. You have your ups, you have your downs. It's not always going to be, you're not always going to have a good team, and sometimes you're the only person your business can count on. So it's like, okay, well, I have to put in the work. I have to, if I want to learn how to do financing or, what, you know, Kennedy's job, like I have to, you know, put in the work, you know. So I've been trying to come earlier. It's a struggle because Kennedy's here at like 6:40 in the morning. I'm not gonna be here at 6:40 in the morning, but I'll be here around like 7:30. You know, like try to get here earlier than what I would initially get here. And I mean, I've been doing pretty good, but today I kind of got here like around 8:40. But that was because I was in Chick-fil-A line, so it took like 20 minutes.
Ralph, I want to ask you the same question. What is something that your relationship with Bree has taught you? What's something that spending time with Bree, interacting with her, raising her, or maybe working with her as of recent, what's something that you've learned that Bree has taught you or helped you come to light with?
In personal or in business or both?
I would say either, whichever one feels more prominent.
I think one of the first things that probably would come to mind or be the highest on the list is that, you know, as our father, well, it's kind of a dual role, you know, in the environment we're in. You got the fatherhood role, then you got business, and then you're blending the two. I think that she's helped me realize that you can do both. You can, you know what I mean? A lot of times you think that you can't do that because, you know, some people think you can't work with husbands and wives can't work together because it's just too much. There's no separation there. And that was something I always wondered, first off, with me and my wife working together. 95% of people would say, there's no way I can do that.
And at first, like growing up, it was a rocky start. Like it wasn't always perfect or whatnot. It was a struggle. Because like growing up, another thing you asked me, like, what's a memory that you have growing up? We'd go on trips and it was like headaches because, you know, we're having it's Friday, you got a payday and all this other stuff. And I'm like, that's like something else. I'm like, dang, is that what it's really like? Like all this chaos, you know what I mean? But you grow. That's like, you know what I mean? Starting off. So like, as you grow, you either learn and you do better or you stay in the same place.
You know, and the people that are watching this, if any of this is resonating with you, especially that, I'll tell you, it's a sign. You know, those moments she's talking about, we used to hate Fridays, man. My goodness. Like when I tell you that season where I hated it, And the reality is, the truth of it is that there's universal laws to everything. And the fact that we were struggling is because, number one, we didn't know what we were doing. Number two, we weren't great managers of that. The Bible tells us we're supposed to manage and subdue whatever we set our hearts and minds and our hands to do. And when you aren't doing that, the reaction to that is chaos. But in that chaos is proof that you've got a job to do.
Yeah.
And you have to face those struggles. Like, sometimes you just have to hold your head down and weather the storm and take the beatings. And you know what did I do wrong? How did I get in this situation? Well, you didn't have a contract in place. You didn't talk about the payment terms up front. You didn't discuss. So can you survive that? Okay, if you survive it, now how do you prevent that from happening again? And you just make those small incremental changes, and over time, the problems that you were having, now you're not having that problem. You got a new problem. And it's just having that perseverance of steadily going through that. But, back to what I was saying, like with Bree, and, I was relating it to my wife and blending that family, business, work-life balance. I, did it with my wife. We had our struggles. Most people said you can't do it. It can ruin marriages and all that. But you got to remember, that was my plan from the beginning, was to have my wife by my side.
And it's funny because, I'm still, trying to, come to the fact that it's not like how it used to be or whatnot, you know what I mean? So there are times where I'm like, our process can be a little bit overwhelming at times, right? So, we use Messenger or whatever, and, that's a bunch of messages coming in at a time. It can be overwhelming and stressful. And I'm over here, the other night, when you took me out the groups or whatever, and I'm over here thinking, oh, Lord, what happened? What happened? Oh, I don't want to go to the office and my mom not be there, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, there's no office without her, So I'm like, oh, Lord, what happened now? You know what I mean? But it was just because it was getting overwhelming. But that's one thing where I have to, also realize, we're not in that same position that, back then where, it's chaos, It's not always a problem or whatnot,
And I realized, too, talking with Ivan just came to mind, and he's got his business in electrical and heating and air, and I'm kind of mentoring him. He's going through some of the same challenges, and, he got to a point to where he wanted to, it's overwhelming, sometimes you just want to throw your hands up and be like, this is too much. And, I shared, and it just blew my mind the way he saw me, or the way he saw us. He's like,
and you would never
and I'm like, he's like, you've went through this, you've went through that, and it was just, to him, it was so fun. I'm like, dude, that is lit. Where you're at, we've been there, and I'm telling you, it does get better, but it's a test, man. You cannot get to the other side until you have went through this, face it. So when you're in those positions, yes, it's struggle, but you know what? Don't do like the other. You pick up that phone. You call that person that you owe money to, or that you don't have it right now, and you over-communicate. That's the other thing. When you got a problem, most people run from them problems. The advice I give people, you run towards them head on. Mark, listen, I'm in a bind right now, man. And I know, yes, I agreed to this, but I don't have that right now, or XYZ happened. But I
better get it.
You know that, and guess what? I'm going to get it, but I need some grace right now. You know what I mean? And
I think,
I'm not going to dodge your call and da da da. And what I've realized is that should be so common, but it's truly uncommon.
And I think that's where you realize a lot of people actually look up to us or to Southeastern, or they think because we have this business, we have this. We got it made or whatever, but in reality, we're just like everybody else. And I think with Ivan's situation, realizing that you have been where he's at now makes, he looks up to you to a certain extent, and it lets him know that it can be done, it can be overcome, because someone who he's close to, who he sees as a mentor, has also been through that, has also overcame that. So, for other people, up and coming companies or whatever, they can look and see that, okay, we're not the only ones. Other people have also went through this.
I think one of the most inspiring things about the whole Southeastern story for me has been, because Brandon, who's behind the camera right now, Brandon Noel, Falair Media, me and him started shooting videos for Ralph 10 years ago. So I used to meet you and your sister and brother sitting on the couch being like quiet little kids, goofing around or whatever. And so, I left for most of my adult life to Los Angeles.
I never thought you'd be back here, just saying.
Yeah, so I left to Los Angeles and worked in entertainment. And while I was there, I was constantly bringing up Southeastern, not only showing the videos we created and the success that we had in the local marketplace, creating vlogs and getting, growing the business with video marketing. That helped get me a job with Gary Vaynerchuk, VaynerMedia and everything. But besides all of that, besides the tech and the tips and the tricks and the work ethic and everything like that, the thing that sticks out to me about Southeastern, why I'm happy, proud, and honored to be back here working with you guys, is because you do good business. There are so many people on this planet that don't believe that you can be wealthy and successful or a good business person.
You have to do shady business.
And even sometimes they don't know they have that belief, and it's subconscious or unconscious, and then they get into business and they get faced with a T in the road and they choose to go down an unethical path because they think they have to pay the bill or to whatever, to achieve some sort of success or level or what have you. And so I just really admire, Ralph, your dedication to your ethics and to your morals and to God and to what you feel like is something more important than a bottom line or a dollar or what have you, and still be able to have a pretty bottom line and you're well off financially. This company, we're doing good as a company, and we're not doing that on the back of bad business or no one's gotten the short end of the stick. And so one thing I've always admired, and one thing that no matter what business I went into, I always tried to bring in that idea of like, how can I make this a win-win-win across the board to where no one has to get the short end of the stick? And that if there's one thing that I can bring to this conversation, I just want any entrepreneur or anybody doing business, just everybody to know that you can be successful by doing the right thing.
100%.
And Ralph is a pure example of that with this family business, and you've changed my life through that. And I've spread that gospel as much as I could. Anytime I've came across people facing those kinds of T's in the road, and then they have that belief comes out of them, and they say, oh, well, everyone's got to do a little this or that. And it's like, you don't.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll tell you, it's a real thing. Don't let anybody fool you. And you will face that challenge in your business where you have that decision. And I've faced it, and we still face it sometimes. There's always parameters, and I'll tell anybody, I want to know the rules. I want to know the parameters. And if we're in a lane and here's the boundary and here's the boundary, I'll work every bit of that. But when we're talking about going, no, I'm not doing that. Because I made a distinctive decision. If it requires me to do that and it means success or failure, I'm okay with failing. Because the worst case scenario is my wife, she's going to be by my side. If this don't work out, and, support me, lift me up when I want to quit, tell me to get up and go at it again. But if I ever get to the point to where I have to make that decision and I have to go work at Walmart or McDonald's or shoveling horse manure to make it, I will do that. But I want to do it on my own terms. But I've had to face that same scenario to where, you could kind of go over here. No, I can't do that.
I think that's also where most people aren't willing to, if they have to work at McDonald's or, what he said, if he had to, he would. So that's why they probably choose the other route, because it's like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. So they choose the easier or what they think is easier rather than, you know what I mean?
It's also a question of integrity, because sometimes in business, you're the only person that knows what you're doing and the way that you're playing your cards. And so it takes a lot of integrity to do the right thing when no one's looking, and when no one can really check you or even know what you have going on. To still do the right thing in those moments is what speaks volumes.
Everything comes to light in the end.
Well, see, the thing that I realized too is that I look at it like this, is that can you be trusted? I mean, it's as simple as that, because like you said, when you're dealing with a surgeon, you don't know that surgeon's role. You don't know what that surgeon's doing, but you trust them, that they've went to school 8 years, 12 years, whatever, and you have blind trust in them. We're in an industry where it ain't quite that simple, and you have to prove that, and you have to continually proving it. But I've just known that I know what kind of legacy I want to leave. I can say whatever, and we're making these videos. You could choose to put on a face and say whatever and present yourself, but you know what? There's people that know you.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And like, I know that. And so the thing that I get a lot of pride in is people, clients that may find us through the videos and stuff, and they get a certain vibe or feel about us and how we market. But then when they come in, you know what? First, I feel like I already know you.
Yeah.
But then the next thing is, are you actually the way you portray your, and you can say whatever you want. When you work with people, they're going to find out there's going to be challenges. So my thing is to be authentic, be who I am no matter who I'm dealing with. Tell you up front, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but it'll never be intentionally. If something does look like it's a certain way, let's come and talk about it. Let's not assume, because I may be over here with something else on my mind thinking a certain way and somebody's trying to present it a certain way, but let's have an open dialogue to where we can, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking or what my view was on it, and almost every time you realize is that there was just a misalignment. And as long as you come back to the table and have that open line of communication, and each party is willing to say, oh, yeah, you was right. I do see how that came across that way. You know what? I tell you what, you won't ever have to worry about that again, and I'll make it right. Because to me, relationships is the real currency, and that's what all of us forget. I'm so glad I've never been driven so much by making millions and all this money. I knew if I did the other stuff right, treat people right, learn the lessons that I needed to learn, don't make the same mistakes too many times over. Don't, you know what I mean? Stay humble. Don't live above my means. Love what you do and do it for the fact that you're loving it. You're going to become great at it. And whatever it is that you become great at it, you keep doing it, you're going to separate yourself from everybody else. Then, just like the Bible says, when you master and subdue whatever you do, guess what? It has to happen. It ain't, it's going to happen. What? Money's going to come. No questions about it. So I've always looked at it like that. And I remember telling my wife one time we were struggling bad. You know what? And I prayed on it. I said, I'm tired of doing it my way. You know, just hard work ain't going to do it. And let me put that out there now. Just hard work won't do it. You know what I'm saying? And I prayed on that thing. I said, you know, I wanna be that example, you know, but I'm clearly not knowing what I need to do. And I asked for wisdom and guidance, and asking ye shall receive. And I think I've done a decent job of learning the lessons that I needed to have learned to keep moving forward and to get to where we've gotten. But I will tell you that, you know, one of the most profound things is that one day can change everything. When the Lord spoke to me and gave me that in my spirit, it changed everything for me. Even though I don't know how I'm gonna pay the overhead this week, we scraped by, and that weekend we had a little burden off of us. We don't know how we're gonna make it next week. One phone call, but I've been planting seeds and been faithful in my work for years and years, and I was ready for it. I didn't have to get ready for it, and that's the other key thing. Is that you can get the opportunities, but if you ain't ready, you're not risk tolerant, you're going to miss it. So, you know, I've had the blessing to not only do that, but then see the other side of it, where you get a phone call and, hey, you know, and it just landed right there in your lap, and you know good and well where that came from. But guess what? I knew right then and I heard, because you were trusted with the little, you can be trusted with a lot. You know what I mean? So it's an amazing journey for me. Like I said, I felt like I've already won. Everything from here on out is bonus. Is extra, you know what I mean? So, and you know, I'm glad that you're part of the journey too, Mark, and you know what I mean? You've got a significant talent. I hope that I can continue to inspire you, because you
Don't flake out on us.
Yeah, don't flake out on us. You got a significant talent, you know, and everybody here, and you caught it when you was getting settled back in. We got a team of rock stars now. You know what I mean? Rock stars meaning like they want it. You know, one thing, they got to want it. They have to have the capacity to do it, and they got to be willing to do it, and they got to be willing to do it over and over and over, even when they don't have to. And I tell people, don't judge me by what I say, judge me by what I do when I don't have to do it. You know, so you asked me, I'll make sure I answer the question directly with Bree. It's, you know, you asked me, you know, what one of the biggest things I've learned is that it's possible. You know what I mean? And it's having. I at one point in time I wanted to say, you can't have family working for you. It's too much this and because I tried it with. My goal was to have nothing but family. Like if anybody was at the table, it was my family. But what I realized too, and I should have known this all along, is that family don't mean blood. a lot of the times. I was adopted. I mean, I should have learned that right out of the gate. And, you know, family can be family's anybody who's got your back when you need it, and you got theirs when they need you. You know what I mean? So, you know, with Bree and, you know, of course, blood is my daughter, but, you know, it's like, it's possible. I didn't have to force it. I didn't coerce it. I did learn my daughter and see what interests her, and was on, well, can she accomplish what she's interested in here? Yeah, I just got to show it to her. Show her what's possible. Give her a blueprint. You know, and that's where we're at, and she's doing the work, and, you know, and the future's bright, man. Future's very bright, so I'm really enjoy this, and one of my goals is to create a legacy through videos, you know that, to where my grandkids, great-grandkids, or whoever, at one point they can come back, hopefully, YouTube's still around, if not something else, and they can just go back and look at these videos and say, think about it, what other point in time in history has this been possible to where when you're dead and gone, your heirs or whatnot can go back and, you know, what was my great-great-granddaddy like? You know, what was his story? How did, you know, mom, when, you know, how did she get into the business? And being able to go back and look at something like this. You know, I want to do more of this, and I hope this has been an inspiration. I know you're going to edit this up and condense it and hopefully get all the good nuggets out of it so it ain't so long and drawn out. Yeah. But I really enjoyed it.